Hello, folks. Daniel with Driving and Dragons here with another D&D Reacts. This time we are taking a look at Feywild, Fiend, and 7 Deadly House Rules. This is a channel I haven't reacted to yet, about 10,000 subs. Seems like 90% of her stuff is how to adapt different kinds of stories, fairy tales, books, Edgar Allan Poe, that sort of thing, into a Feywild setting. So it's going to be a very 5e centric video, which will be fun because I'm not a big 5e guy. So I'm going to be taking these in kind of a neutral analysis, if you will. Basically going back and trying to say, on a general principle of what this would do to the game, is it something that I would think is a good idea? I did also fool around with some of the settings in StreamYard that will hopefully result in not having the kind of choppy audio issues that I've had with StreamYard in the past. Hope it works. But we're going to jump into this one here pretty quick. While you're here, like, share, subscribe, check out my Patreon, and support what I do here if you care to. Goes a little bit goes a really long way for us. And we're working on getting the Dodge Dart down here now to go ahead and start working on it now that the title issues are cleared up. And we're going to be giving away a car here, hopefully, in the next little bit. And of course, by a little bit, that's going to depend entirely on how well this whole YouTube thing plays out. But, super sticker, if you want to give me something one time just to kind of, say, hey, here you go, I'm going to buy an air filter or something, throw it in there. But really looking forward to that. I'm going to try and knock out a couple of reactions this week. I've had a few that have been requested by people in the comment section. Hey, have you checked out this channel? Hey, this channel really annoys me, that sort of thing. I want to try and find some more positive reactions as well, so that I'm not always just kind of bashing on the 5e D&D tuber community. Because, and let's face it, a lot of YouTube content that, especially shorter form ones that you can really do a reaction to without it being 4 hours long, a lot of that is very much in that kind of 5e space, whereas it seems that the OSR tends to focus on more long form content. And it's like, hey, why don't you do Daddy Rolled a One? I'm like, because Daddy Rolled a One doesn't have videos that are under an hour and a half. The reaction would be 5 hours long. Anyway, so we're going to jump into this and go ahead and see what she thinks when it comes to these 7 deadly house rules. And I'm going to give you my opinion on them, and we'll see what we come up with.
Ask and ye shall receive is my theme this month. Last week I answered the question, what do I think of Fey Wanderer Rangers? This week, I am telling you about our personal home game rules. These are mostly in no particular order, but I did save my favorite for last. Sorry. Can I try to get my watch hours up? Can I try and get some engagement around here? Our first home rule, if you want to make a persuasion check or persuade an NPC of something, I need to know how you're doing it. For our group, this mostly comes in the form of role play. They will actually act out the way that they're trying to persuade an NPC of something. But if you're not feeling the actual role play, you don't want to actually do that, you don't have to. You can just describe, okay, I'm going to try to convince this NPC of this by laying out this specific argument. I feel like this is pretty common, but you can't just say, okay, the guard is there, I want to convince him to just walk away. I want to know how you're persuading him. This rule honestly helps players more than it ever hinders them, because let's say a guard is watching something super important and it's a 25 or 20 DC to convince him to leave. A really good argument could lower that to like 15. Our second rule.
Okay, so first rule up, I agree with 1001%. Now, it's kind of funny because we look at it from a couple of different ways. I had an argument on Facebook here not too long ago. Not really, I guess I wouldn't call it an argument, but a little back and forth. Because I said that, a general rule at my table is any roll you make that I didn't call for is wasted automatically. And generally, it's an automatic fail. You don't come in and say, all right, I want to go convince the guard to get past him. Oh, I rolled 20 on my diplomacy check. It's like, I didn't tell you to roll a diplomacy check. So that roll is wasted. It's gone. And if it's not going to hurt everybody else at the table, you're probably going to fail that diplomacy roll. If it's possibly going to, quote unquote, punish the whole group, then I'll generally be like, hey, look, that was going to succeed anyway. You didn't need to roll for it because they were already kind of on your side. I'm not going to make an NPC or something do something totally different just to make a point. And second, I'm not going to punish the whole group. But just in this last session, I had that exact thing happen. And the player rolled a natural 20. And she was like, oh, yeah, it's great. I'm like, you didn't need to roll anything. She was already going to say yes. Well, I want to use that natural 20 for something else. So it's like, well, too bad. It's a mindset issue here. And this is where I have a problem with it. The correct order of operations and proper etiquette for any role-playing game, you tell me as the game master what you want to do and how you want to go about doing it. All right. I want to attempt to jump across the gorge. Then I determine whether or not you need to roll and what you need to roll. Now, there could be some discussion there. I could say, hey, I'm going to try and convince the guard of this, whatever. And I'm like, well, roll diplomacy. And they're like, well, no, really I'm doing this. So I think it's more of a bluff because I'm really going to lie to them. I was like, okay, well, you can use a bluff or vice versa, something of that nature. There might be a little bit of back and forth there about what the appropriate skill is. Not necessarily because you're haggling with your player, but because maybe the player didn't really communicate clearly what they're trying to do because they know what skill they want to use. But what should never happen is a player walks up and says, I want to use bluff. I want to roll perception. I want to roll this, that, or the other. It's like, no. Your character does not want to roll into anything. I don't walk into my kitchen and say, man, I want to open the refrigerator and make a sandwich. I go in and say, I want to make a sandwich. I don't walk in there and say, I want to roll a cooking check. I walk in and say, I wonder what I want to eat. And I open up the fridge and say, you know what? I'm going to cook that steak and I'm going to cook those eggs and I'm going to have steak and eggs and I'm going to chop up some potatoes and have some home fries. That's what I say. I don't say I'm going to go make a cook check. All right. So your character doesn't think that way either. And as a player, it should be, hey, I'm going to go in the kitchen and I'm going to try and make some bomb ass steak and eggs with home fries. And then the DM says, okay, cool. Make a cook check. That's the proper order of operations. And from the role-playing side, she's absolutely 100% correct here. This is the kind of thing that gets your players into the proper mindset. And they should tell you how they want to go about doing something, particularly if it's a more difficult task or a more lengthy thing that may even come from a DM prompted question. Hey, I want to jump across the gorge. Well, it's a pretty good distance. It's, good 20 feet. Is there anything you want to do? How are you going to make this jump? Because it's pretty far. Oh, well, I'm going to pole vault, or I'm going to get a running start, or I'm going to try, is there a tree nearby that I can climb up and try and jump from an elevated position? Okay. It may come from that, but in general, you should be saying that. And it does give you this opportunity. There is no issue with saying, hey, this would normally be like a DC 15 or a DC 20, and I'm going to lower it to a 15 or a 10 because you really came up with an out-of-the-box way to do it that would be more persuasive, that would give you a better chance of success. I don't know if I'd necessarily do 5 points. Maybe 5th edition is a little bit more swingy and can handle the 5 points. In 3rd edition, we always called it the rule of 2. So, okay, well, I'll give you a +2 on that roll, or I'll lower the DC by 2 because you had a really good idea. But 100% agree with this in any game. I don't care what it is.
Revolves around expanded bonus actions. So the official 2024 Player's Handbook, I'm going with the updated rules for this video, says you can take a bonus action only when a special ability, a spell, or another feature of the game states that you can do something as a bonus action. We typically expand on what a bonus action can be. For instance, in combat, if you want to drop your bow and arrow and pull out your sword, pulling out the sword would count as a bonus action. Yelling something can also count as a bonus action. It really just depends on how much time we determine it takes to do something, which leads me into our 3rd rule regarding potion.
Okay, so bonus actions. This is a 5th edition thing. And even Mike Merles had said that bonus actions were a mistake to begin with, and they really are. I'm not a fan of the way they tried to classify actions in 5th edition. Way better and way more simple and easy to understand in 3rd. You had move equivalent actions, full round actions, and you had free actions. That's basically what you had. So more or less, you could take 2 move equivalent actions. You could take a free action, or you could take a full round action. If you took a full round action, the only thing you could do was a free action and a full round action. So if you wanted to use all of your attacks, you couldn't move and take all of your attacks. You could take all of your attacks and say something, and it was a free action to say something. There's a lot of game master discretion that's involved in this, but the whole bonus action, quick action, reaction, this entire attempt to try and categorize different actions in 5th edition, from everything that I've seen, does nothing but cause confusion and problems. And it really is something that I wouldn't say expanded bonus actions is what you should have. Honestly, and kind of break things down into, this takes a full round, this takes a move equivalent. You got 2 move equivalent actions in a round. You can double move, you can move and draw a weapon, whatever the case may be, and make an adjustment, a judgment adjustment on the fly in order to make it fit with the verisimilitude or the realism of the world and the setting. The example she used, dropping the bow to draw your sword, as opposed to it being a full round action or a move equivalent action to draw a sword to make it faster, I'm okay with that. And there was even a feat for it in 3rd edition. It's called Quick Draw, where you could draw a weapon as a free action. And that allowed you to do things like put up a weapon and draw a weapon in the same round, as opposed to needing to drop the weapon to draw another one, which would then cause problems if you needed to pick that other weapon back up. These are the kind of Rule 0 judgments that need to happen in game to make the game really feel like a true lived-in world, make players not feel like they're cheated by the constraints of the rules, and do what I would call getting rid of the invisible walls. You play your video games and you're running to the side of the map and bam, invisible wall. I can't jump over this hill. There's just a wall there and I can't get through it. Everybody hates that, because it breaks the immersion of the game by running and saying, oh, well, there's just no reason I can't go any further. Well, that's the same thing in your TTRPG. When you run into these things that don't make sense, that disrupt that flow, those are when you run against the rules in the active gameplay, that is when you start hitting invisible walls. And at any point in time, if you can smooth over or eliminate an invisible wall, that is a good thing as a game master and an appropriate use of Rule 0. So let's see what she's going to say about drinking potions with bonus actions. I think this is going to be one I disagree with.
We don't do this one so much anymore, but in the past we've had the rule where if you drink a potion as an action instead of a bonus action, you can receive its full benefits. This is obviously most helpful when it comes to like healing potions, because if you automatically get the max healing from a potion, might be worth it to drink it as your action. Especially at higher levels, it makes healing potions a little more enticing, especially if you're level like 10 or 11 fighting something insane, and there's a risk that your potion is just going to give you back like 4 health instead of 12. Is that the max? I'm not doing the math in my head. I don't know. It can be a pretty big difference at higher levels. You might want to just take the time to go ahead and get the full benefits, and then stuff like health potions are still useful at those levels. And on another similar...
Okay, looks like she's going into the next one. And this is the one I expected her to come up with, because it's a real common one, and it's a real bad one. 5th edition already has way too much healing. Now, on one hand, the healing potions, from what I understand in 5th edition, they are a lot less powerful. In 3rd edition, for instance, they were tied back to a spell. You could have a potion of cure critical wounds that is very effective at high levels, and you could have a potion of cure light wounds that's a D8 plus caster level. And I think now all the healing potions are like 2d4 plus 2 or something like that. So you do have less healing on the potion, but there is so much more ability to recover, so much more healing that is accessible to the players in 5th edition. The last thing you need is to add more healing to the game. This is a bad idea. It also doesn't make sense. This is one of those non-realistic things. Okay? I'm going to drink a Red Bull. Okay. And now let's keep in mind that a potion is a lot smaller than a Red Bull. I think they're like 1 or 2 ounces. So they're like a shot glass. Okay. I've been really drunk in the past before. I mean, I've had some wild party days. I have never missed my mouth with a shot glass. Okay. I've damn sure never missed my mouth with a shot glass stone sober. All right. So, I'm going to be extra careful and make sure I drink this entire 1 ounce potion, this entire shot glass of liquor. I'm going to take a full 6 seconds to drink it. You ain't getting any drunker. Same thing with your healing potion. This is absolutely idiotic. I'm going to waste my whole turn to get extra healing potion. This is video gamey nonsense. And unfortunately, it also even further increases the healing that is in your 5e game and the ability of these players to be more durable, their characters to be more durable, which is already a problem with 5e to start with. If you feel the need, let's say you've already taken house rule steps, changed death saving throws, that sort of thing, and backed them up in order to make your 5th edition game more lethal, and you feel that you need that additional healing potency at the higher levels, just create magic items that are more efficient healing potions. Just go back and create more efficient healing items that can be accessible to those higher level characters at a higher cost. That's how you fix it. You don't fix it by saying we're going to take the item that's designed for the lower level characters and we're going to give you a cheapo way to maximize it. Because it way unbalances it for those lower levels, and it's just not necessary in 5th edition. And I'm never going to agree with this one. You should not get more potency out of something like a potion or a magic item because you took extra time activating it when it doesn't take extra time. I'm going to give you this. Think about a light switch. Is the room any more lit up if I walk in and flip it up with my finger, or if I walk in and slowly push the switch up? No, it has the exact same effect other than it took me 6 seconds to move the switch on one hand. So no, it should not be more effective.
Regarding bonus actions, my 4th rule is that if something is stated as a bonus action, it can be done as an action. So like with the potion thing, if you want to drink it as an action, you can. It doesn't have to be a bonus action. If you want to do something else that would normally take a bonus action, like if you have Moonbeam up, I don't remember if Moonbeam is an action or bonus action to move, but let's say it's a bonus action, you could instead use your action to move it. A lot of this can be explained by saying that to us, action versus bonus action is a matter of time. Actions technically take a little more time to do something, bonus actions a little less. So if you want to spend more time to do something that could technically take less, that's fine by me. Like, it doesn't go the other way around. You can't do an action as a bonus action because you wouldn't have time. Moving away from bonus action.
Okay. This is absolutely 100% just, once again, another common sense rule, another thing that really fits into just that realism world. There's some exceptions to it. So for instance, like if you call speaking a bonus action, or as I would refer to it, a free action. Part of the reason speaking is a free action, as long as you're not trying to use a skill like diplomacy or bluff or something, is because the idea is that I can swing my sword and I can run across the room and swing my sword while yelling to my teammate at the same time. All right, let's use the potion example. I can chug the potion while I'm moving. All right, that's fine. So why wouldn't I be able to move and then chug the potion and that's it? Or chug 2 potions. One is my bonus action and one is a regular action. The general rule should always be, and this is just my opinion, this is the way I've always ruled things, and I think this makes for a more realistic world. Any action should be able to be utilized to use a higher level action. So for instance, I can use my full round action to just do a move equivalent action. I can use my move equivalent action to just do like a quickened action or something that's not truly a free action, unless it's otherwise limited. Same thing here. If you got bonus action, I should be able to do 3 bonus actions. If I want to waste my movement and my regular action and my bonus action to chug 3 potions, I should be able to chug 3 potions. Because if popping a potion takes hardly any time at all, then it should take hardly any time at all 3 times. It already takes less time than an attack. It already takes less time than movement. So why wouldn't I be able to use that? It's just common sense.
Land. Rule number 5 is that death saving throws are a secret. Those are between you and God, aka the player whose character is unconscious and the DM. If the rest of the party knows your results, depending on what's happening in the fights, they may allow that to affect their decision. So if you are passing all these throws and you become stabilized several rounds into combat, they may not be as worried about getting you up if you're not being continually attacked after that. You know, if combat's almost over, they're like, we can finish this off and then get him up. You know, let's focus on the hitting him part. Come on. It means it's essentially less metagaming in combat when someone goes down. And in reality, why would the other characters know how good of a job that character's doing at avoiding the light at the end of the tunnel? It means they can make that decision about whether to help that character or not in that moment based off the character they're playing. Keeps them a little more in the game. The 6th rule, another...
All right, that's another one I totally agree with. In a perfect world where a game master can really manage all of this stuff, and maybe one of these days with tools it could be more realistic to do this, I would say that, you know, your hit points, your magic or mana points or something, you know, if those exist in your game or your world, these kind of abstractions that we have in the game really should be something that the players are not aware of. I shouldn't be learning, oh, damn, I'm at 20 hit points. I did this once again in my game on Sunday. One of my players was like, hey, how many hit points do you have left? I said, don't say that. It's like, you don't know anything about hit points. Your character doesn't have hit points. Your character is either hurt or not hurt. And he says something along the lines of, I'm really hurt. Like, I'm hurting bad. And I can say something along the lines of, he's pretty beat up. Like, he looks like he's struggling to stay conscious here. Because you knowing that he has 3 hit points versus you knowing that he's really banged up, she's absolutely right. These kind of things influence your decisions. As much as is possible, a player character should not let math and probabilities influence their character's decisions, especially in combat, which is a situation where things are coming up, snap decisions are being made. Let's take a realistic example here. You may be a really good paramedic, for instance, but you're in the heat of combat, your buddy just went down. You don't really have time to stop and look and say, all right, that was a through and through and he's going to pull through. I can deal with this after the fight. You may look down and say, hey, I've got to stop that bleeding right now because I don't know if this is serious bleeding and an internal puncture or something, or if it's a through and through and he'll be all right laying in the dirt for a minute. You don't know that without taking significant time to look at it. So when it comes to death saving throws, which to be honest, I would eliminate altogether anyway, at least beyond the first one. Yeah, absolutely right. You do not let players know who has made any successes or failures on death saving throws, because I want you constantly thinking, I have to save them now or they will die. I have to at least go make a check. And then if you want to, you can make some kind of medicine or healing check or something, and the DM could say, he's not struggling yet, or his breathing is shallow and he's unconscious, and he could go either way, or he is fading quickly, his breath is going out, he's bleeding profusely, all to kind of convey the how many death or saving throws he's got left without actually passing that information. Because absolutely correct. You do not want a situation where game rule meta information, using meta in the true sense of the next level up, is not what makes the decisions within the game.
A pretty common one has to do with having respect for the Pythagorean theorem. So when we're playing on a board, diagonal movement isn't just 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 feet. If you are moving diagonally on the board, the first diagonal is free, 5 feet, and then 10, then 5, then 10. Mathematically, it works out a little bit better. In the last rule,
that one's not going to be much for me. I'm exclusively a theater of the mind GM. Even when I do use either miniatures or some representation to kind of show people what the battlefield looks like in that thing. I'm a big believer in no grids and in no measurements and in no feet. If you want to sit here and say, hey, man, we're looking into this cave about how far across it is, I can say something along the lines, well, you think it's probably about 120, 125 feet or something. But once again, in battle, ain't nobody busting out that ruler to find out if it's 30 feet or 31 feet or 28 feet. It's not happening. So you're close, you're far, that sort of thing. But if you're going to use miniatures, that is the fair way to do it. You use it as the, in the knight situation where it's 1, 2, 3, up, over, down, and you adjust for the half square. So, like I said, Pythagorean theorem, 5, 10, 5, 10, 5, 10, however you want to do it that way. That is not a bad way to do it. But I'm going to push on this one and kind of be neutral towards it because I'm not a minis guy anyway.
My favorite is reflavoring elemental spells. If someone's playing a character that leans heavily in a thematic sense on a certain element, they can reflavor spells to deal that element's damage. For instance, a spell like Scorching Ray can become Poison Ray. It's not changing how far the spell can go. It's not changing its components, anything like that. It's just changing the damage type. Notice my emphasis, of course, on the elemental piece of this. We're not switching from like elemental to force damage. You can't make a fireball deal force damage. And if you're reflavoring a spell, you do have to get DM approval, and it's a decision that needs to be made before the campaign starts. You can't, realize that fire isn't going to work in this campaign all that well and say, oh, well, my character is more of a poison-based character, so I'm going to make it poison damage instead. We're not doing that. When you come into the campaign, you already have your spells reflavored with DM approval. DM gets final say on if something is legal or not. And it's also recommended that players don't change all of their elemental spells to just one type, because then that can kind of put you in a bind. I also think it's fun to give the spells a more creative name, because that doesn't affect it at all. Although I will say, when it comes to renaming spells, if you have a new player in the group, that can get so confusing. My very first campaign that I played in, someone had renamed, I literally just had to look it up. The cleric spell Inflict Wounds, our cleric just called it Bad Touch the entire campaign. I knew that wasn't the official name of the spell, but I didn't know what it was. And when I was making a cleric for myself later down the line, I saw this. I was like, oh my gosh, this spell called Inflict Wounds. This looks so good. This looks like a great spell. And he was like, yeah, I used it that whole campaign. So what are you talking about? And even now, I cannot remember that it's called Inflict Wounds. I think of that spell and I'm like, that's Bad Touch. In other words, rename at the risk of education. So those are at least some of our house.
Okay, so that last house rule is one that you have to really take with a grain of salt and be careful with. It's going to vary wildly based on the game, because there are some places where some of these games, the elemental damage means a whole lot more than just the damage. Without getting too deep into it, if you're in a situation where a game, for instance, has a much higher prevalence, just naturally, we're not talking of a particular enemy type, for instance, but there's a much higher prevalence of, say, fire resistance than there is cold resistance. Changing the elemental type to cold is not just a thematic flavor. It actually makes that spell more powerful because it has more versatility. You also have to think in terms of the externalities. So, for instance, if you have clever players who are using their spells for things outside of the norm, for instance, you have to take into mind how those things are going to work. So, for instance, maybe you have somebody who uses grease and fireball, and your ruling is that grease can ignite, so fireball goes in and can ignite the grease. Or burning hands or whatever can go in and ignite the grease. That's cool. But when you change it from burning hands to frozen hands, and now all of a sudden your wizard goes up and casts Create Water into the space between the bricks in the wall to the city and then uses freezing hands to separate those bricks, cause separation, and compromise that wall, you have made that spell substantially more powerful through that creative use, something that would not be available with something as simple as burning hands. Now, I mean, there's, Ray of Frost, et cetera, et cetera. Don't focus on the specific example, just the point of what I'm getting at, where it can, those simple kind of changes can make something more powerful than it's intended to be. And you need to kind of pay attention to it and think of those things. Other than that, I kind of agree with it. If somebody comes to me and they got a cool idea and they want to do something with it, it's before the campaign starts. We're not pulling some crap out of our back pocket halfway through the campaign to try and make things work better for us. We're legitimately doing something that improves the overall game and, creates a new character, and they have no way of knowing if that's going to be better or worse. I have no problem with that. Renaming spells was actually right there in the 3.5 player's handbook. It was like, hey, it's same thing with skills. It was like, maybe the monk doesn't say I move silent. They use their rice paper walk because, they're an Oriental monk, and that's what it is. It's how to quietly walk across the rice paper is how they were trained to do it. That kind of thing. I mean, that's fun. That's just decent role play. I think that's probably a good idea. That's a good thing, as I think we all do it to a certain extent. Everybody's had that super anime fan who, plays a wizard but uses, D&D, or not D&D, uses Dragon Ball Z attack names when they use their spells just as a joke. I mean, as a matter of fact, I got a sorcerer in my 3.5 game who carries around a wand of magic missiles and says he's going to pull out his Glock. Got my Glock ready. So that's just, nothing bad there. It's just one of those things where you always want to think of the externalities. A common failing that you see in a lot of players, and this is not just 5e, but you see it across the board. It's just really common with a lot of the newer players, is they make decisions that, oh man, that sounds so cool, and that kind of fits with the story and all that stuff, but they don't think of the externalities, and those can really get out of hand when you get a clever gamer that you didn't think about.
Rules. I hope you like them. I have no concept of how popular these are. Most of them I did not instill. The guy who kind of got our group together was our very first DM. He did most of these, although I did instate the Pythagorean theorem. I did do that. So let me know, guys. What are your favorite house rules? Which of ours do you like? What do you maybe want to adopt? Check out my Patreon if you want.
Okay. So going back to what we've got going on there, I can't complain. I mean, what was that? 2 yes, 2 no, and 1 push that I had out of those. No, she had 7. So I think it was like 3, 3, and 1, or 4, 2, and 1. So you can't really complain too much there. We're going to call that one a positive video. I don't think there was much bad there. I think I'm going to go back to that channel, check out some of the other things. Nothing too objectionable, nothing too out of the ordinary, no nonsense shoehorning in safety tools or any of that BS. So let's go ahead and give them another chance on something with a little bit more meat on it next time. But what do you think of these 7 rules? And what are some of the rules that you have, especially if you're a 5e player? Because I'm not. So is there something I missed? Is there one of those externalities that I didn't cover with this rule down there at, that I, just like when I was talking about with the changing of the spells, is there something I missed just because I'm not a 5e guy? Let me know in the comment section below. Check out that Patreon. Thanks to all you guys who are already supporting me. It means more than you know. And I'll see you guys next time.